Hello, and welcome back to another update where I cover the latest developments in the world events as the situation in the whole world has significantly escalated with the inauguration of the US President Donald Trump. Most importantly, the situation in the Middle East, the local developments near the United States, and the trade war between the United States and China has begun. We also see some developments in the Russo-Ukrainian war, where most importantly in this direction, it seems that there are signs of a new Russian offensive along the Oskil River line in the Kharkiv border area. So we see that there are significant developments in the Russo-Ukrainian war as well as the whole world situation. Starting out in the United States neighborhood, both Canada and Mexico have both caved into US demands. Both of them have promised to station approximately 10,000 soldiers in the border area between the United States and Canada, as well as the United States and Mexico. Their objective is to prevent illegal migration through the border areas and to prevent illegal smuggling across the border areas. Canada has also promised to invest $1 billion into new digital solutions to deal with these issues. This has given the United States some success in its negotiations, and this happened due to the United States' threats of 25% tariffs on Mexico and Canada. At the same time, the United States also threatened a 10% tariff on China. This has now gone into effect, as all Chinese products being sent to the United States are now subject to 10% of tariffs. The Chinese responded in kind with a 10% tariff on everything from the United States, except for coal and natural gas, which expects a 15% tariff instead. There are reports that a negotiation will take place between China and the United States over this. However, it is unlikely to be easily resolved, and this will likely go into a longer trade war between China and the United States. This will have a significant economic impact on the world stage, and this is just the beginning. There is yet to have a tariff imposed on the EU or the United Kingdom. The EU and the United Kingdom are negotiating, as well as Denmark, with the EU in terms of negotiations over Greenland, because Denmark does not wish to give up Greenland and has sought support from the European nations in their negotiations with the United States. In the Middle East, significant developments have taken place. This is due to a new Trump suggestion that the Palestinians in Gaza are to be expelled, the majority of them, approximately 1.5 million according to his words. Then he will turn Gaza into a Riviera, which is practically a coastal city with luxury resorts and stuff like that. He says this will significantly help the lifestyle and the wealth of the Palestinians living in the area, and it will also open up the area to the world. This, however, has not landed on good foot with anyone, really. Even some senators from both the Republican and the Democrat side have already gone out to refute this plan, but most importantly, the response in the Middle East has been significant. Saudi Arabia, Qatar, United Arab Emirates, Jordan, Egypt, and the Palestinian Authority in Palestine, as well as Hamas, have all gone out in a joint statement to refute this plan. There's also been talks about the United States supporting a potential Israeli annexation of the Palestinian West Bank, which the US President Donald Trump stated that he would make a decision on this topic within the next 4 weeks. As a response to that, Jordan has threatened war with Israel over a potential annexation of the West Bank. At the same time, with the Israeli bombing campaign over Syria, as well as recent escalations with the Gaza area, we have seen videos of Egyptian tanks being gathered in Sinai close to the Israeli-Egyptian border, which is a clear violation of the Camp David Accords, which is the peace deal between Israel and Egypt. Egypt justifies this with the Israeli entry into the Rafah border area in their Gaza operations, which was also a breach of the peace deal between Egypt and Israel. Therefore, both sides have broken it to the same extent with these concentrations of forces. So we see that there's a clear escalation between Israel and all of its neighbors with these recent developments in terms of a potential Israeli annexation of the West Bank and an exodus of Palestinians from the Gaza Strip. At the same time, Donald Trump has threatened Iran over any assassination attempts on his life. Donald Trump stated that if Iran attempted to assassinate him or succeeded in assassinating him, that Iran would be destroyed. That is practically threatening war on Iran if there was an attempt on Donald Trump's life going forward. So see that the United States have definitely joined the world stage with a bang with the Donald Trump inauguration, where he is now practically threatening every single country in the world, including his own allies, to get his way. He is facilitating the way that we should expect Donald Trump to act in the next 4 years and setting the stage for, well, what could really escalate to a third world war with his actions against China and the Middle Eastern countries. In the Russo-Ukrainian war, there was a temporary stop in US military aid to Ukraine and a permanent stop to US aid to Ukraine. The US aid will not be coming back according to White House statements, but the US military aid has restarted this last weekend, and with this, the US military aid to Ukraine is continuing. At the same time, we see that the Russians have made some advances across the front line, and there is an increased risk of a new Russian Kharkiv offensive along the Oskil River line. Starting out in the area west of Kharkiv, the Russians advanced further towards the western outskirts of Dashne as they fight over the remaining fortified positions west of Kharkiv. The objective of the Russians is to gain full control over the town and the fortified positions, to move further westwards along the pocket which has been created in this area in between the Vovcha River line to the north and the Sukhyali River line to the south, connecting west of Ulakli. The Russian objective is to gain full control over this pocket and move further westwards towards the Dnipropetrovsk region. The Russian advances across the Donetsk region has significantly slowed down over this month of February. This gives me multiple theories. One of them is that the weather situation is simply so terrible that drone operations are limited and assault operations are limited. Drone operations would be limited if there's a lot of rain, if there's a lot of clouds and other obstacles in the air. In the meantime, physical operations, offensive operations would be limited if the ground is muddy. This would limit supplies and the ability for armored vehicles to advance towards forward positions. Therefore, we see that the area has reached much more of a stalemate compared to previous months, as the situation among the weather has significantly complicated the situation. The other theory is that the Russians are preparing for a new operation in the Kharkiv region. This would put a temporary pause on other operations, as the Russians will then focus on the results of this battle to determine how they move forward in other sections of the front line. If the Russians succeed in the Kharkiv region, they may prioritize offensive operations there over elsewhere, and if it only faces limited success, they will continue doubling down on the Donetsk region and the Kursk region in the north. What we are seeing along the Oskil River line is that the Russians have gained control over the Vorishna, which is an important logistical supply hub for whoever controls it along the Oskil River line in the northern edges of it. At the same time, they are getting within 5 kilometers of Kupiansk to the south, and with control over Zapadne, they have secured their foothold across, and with further expansion in the northern and southern directions, the Russians are slowly moving on to have a proper foothold across. I previously mentioned that this could launch a significant change to the situation along the front line, where the Russians could connect their forces between the Vorishna in the east and Vovchansk in the west. We also saw recent activities starting in the Vovchansk direction, with Russian capture of Tychy and advances within the town itself. This indicates that operations may take place in between these two areas. Now we are also seeing some border clashes along the eastern outskirts of the Uskar River line, along the Russian-Ukrainian border area, and the Russians have attempted another river crossing near Pisky towards Topoli, which is a border town right next to the Russo-Ukrainian border. With this, the Russians may launch a general offensive operation in the eastern outskirts of the Kharkiv region, where the objective will be to gain control over the border area between Russia and Ukraine, and this will lead to offensive operations taking place in the eastern parts of the Kharkiv region and will allow the Russian forces to gain control over the Uskar River line and advance towards Izium and Liman in the northern section of the front line. Therefore, if the Russians face some success in the border area, they may double down on that to gain control over Izium and Liman in the northern outskirts of the Donetsk region and the eastern outskirts of the Kharkiv region, as well as the entirety of the Uskar River line. If they face little success and heavy resistance, then they may simply double down on their offensive operations into the Donetsk and Kursk regions. Therefore, what is happening in the Russo-Ukrainian war in the eastern section of the front line may have a significant effect on the war going forward. If the Russians manage to gain control over towns such as Izium and Liman in the north, then the fall of the Donetsk region would likely take place within this summer of 2025, and this will simply significantly complicate the situation for the Ukrainians in the defense of their eastern regions, such as Kharkiv, Sumy, Donetsk, and Zaporizhzhia. And that is going to be all for this update. Thank you all for watching. Make sure to leave a like, subscribe, check out my Patreon and YouTube membership for additional content. Thank you all for watching and have a great day.